The contrast between the two extremes of wealth and poverty is most blatantly seen in metropolitan areas. Cities like New York City and Los Angeles have a large population of people experiencing homelessness. The growing quantity of homelessness has created unsafe living conditions for those on the streets. The homeless epidemic in urban areas is directly correlated with other underlying issues, namely the lack of affordable housing. Our housing crisis is our homeless crisis.
We cannot ignore that our homelessness crisis is directly linked to the affordable housing crisis. Too many people cannot afford to keep a roof over their heads, as wages have not kept pace with rising rents.
We really must understand the reasons behind the homelessness. There's a direct correlation with the amount of regulatory barriers, home prices, apartment prices, and homelessness. And we need to be willing to face that. We can't solve this problem by just throwing money at it. We really have to look at the etiology of the problem.
About 30% of homeless people overall are unsheltered. That means they're living in places not meant for human habitation. It's not by choice. It's because either there are not shelter beds or the shelter beds have so many barriers to entry that people can't get into them.
Housing policies that are overly restrictive, that raise the cost of housing. Washington, D.C., for example, is one of the most expensive places to live in the country. Same with San Francisco. But there's extremely restrictive housing policies regarding how much housing can be built in an area. And essentially by doing that, the owners of that property that are trying to keep out high-rise apartments and increasing densification that would lower the cost of housing are implicitly hurting poor people in the process. The best way to help low-income people is actually to enact policies that reduce the cost of living.
To me, it has broader economic problems as well. Your ability to move to a New York or a Los Angeles to be able to advance in your career, that's threatened if you can't find a house to live. So it impacts your career, it impacts the stability in your life. It's difficult to keep a job if you don't have stable. So to me, this is a real crisis that's all-encompassing.
Our team believes the most effective way to solve the homeless problem is to implement the principle of subsidiarity, that states' issues must be handled at the most centralized level possible. For the homeless crisis, this means increasing the amount and resources that homeless shelters have to offer. One prevalent homeless shelter in Los Angeles that aims to end homelessness is Hope of the Valley. We talked to CEO Ken Kraft about his perspective on the homeless crisis.
At Hope of the Valley, we have a good percentage of people that are working. Maybe 50% of them actually do work. But many of them, they're entry-level jobs, they're minimum wage jobs, and because of that, it's extremely difficult. As our mayor has eloquently said, that we are facing a crisis. We are in a state of emergency right now, and so when there's a lack of affordable housing, there's a lack of resources, it's going to really take something drastic to turn the tide. Sometimes people have this misconception that people that are homeless are lazy, they're dirty, they're angry, they don't want help, they prefer to be homeless, and nothing could be further from the truth. The majority of them, they don't want to be homeless. They want to end their homelessness, and we work with them every day to help them end their homelessness. Well, many of the people that are experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles is a direct byproduct of the cost of living. The average one-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles costs $2,200, and that just is not affordable on a minimum wage salary. And probably the best statistic I heard on this was right now, every day, 120 people are housed in Los Angeles, but every day 140 people become homeless. And what's pushing them over the edge into homelessness is a lack of affordable housing and livable wages. The crisis that we're facing is a community problem. Okay, it is not just one segment of society. It genuinely takes all of us working together to solve this problem. What it really takes is a moral conscience. You know, we need to look out for our brother. We are our brother's keeper. And if it's all about profits and making money and charging more at the expense of pushing people out on the streets and having people live in such deplorable conditions, then it starts with heart change. It says, you know what, housing is a basic human right, and we need to make sure that everybody has access to affordable housing.
Our vision for 2020 is a nation where everyone has a place to call home.